Welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Luening, Horst Luening. I'm the master taster of Whisky.com, and today we have the FAQs, and I'm sorry, I no longer count how many FAQs I have here on the videos, so it's another FAQ. There had been a question in the forum on Whisky.com. Why are most of the Scotch distilleries congregated near the River Spey? Other than being the fastest flowing river in Scotland, is there something else about it that makes locating a distillery near it preferable? Is the water in that area better for making whisky, since so many other distilleries located elsewhere produce single malts of comparable quality? Why would so many Scotch producers have built their distilleries in the Speyside region? Well, it's not the water. The water is important for distilling. There had been some distilleries, which had to stop operation due to missing water, like the Banff distillery. Water is used from the rivers for the cooling of the production equipment. So the condensers or the warm tubs, they need cool, fresh water for condensing the alcoholic vapors to the raw whiskey. And this water is typically taken from a nearby river and a mile above the location of the distillery. Typically, you take the water out of the river, have it through a pipe or a channel to the distillery, then you cool and then you drop it down to river level. And you need another water from a well, from a source for the production, for really the water inside the whiskey. And so you typically use a place for the distillery where you have a source, a well, and you're lying slightly above the river, so prevent flooding from the river and so on. In former times, the water in the rivers had been a lot worse than today. So everything was dumped into the rivers and out of sight, gone. So you couldn't take water for whiskey production from the river. No, impossible. So today the rivers are very, very clean, and sometimes I hear about that water from the river is taken for whiskey production, but this is very rare. So the distilleries had to locate at the rivers, and the Speyside region does not mean that the distillery is located close to the Spey, but all water flowing to the Spey is called Speyside. So there are several smaller rivers going into the Spey, which are used for the location of distilleries as well. So it's not only the Spey, but all rivers there are used for the production and the location for distilleries. There's a complete other reason why the distilleries are there. It's the railway. There is this wonderful book of Alfred Bernard from 1880, around that date, where he visited the distilleries of the United Kingdom. And Ireland belonged to the United Kingdom. And the stories in this book show how he traveled Scotland. If you went by cab, by a horse cab, then you were able to travel 10 to 20 miles a day. The roads were really bad up there, so you were stuck in the region. With a new built railway, you were able to travel 100 miles in a day, so factor of 10. And because the markets for the whiskey produced in the Highlands weren't in the Highlands, but in the Lowlands and in England, therefore the distilleries had to be close to the railway to have their goods delivered. There had been a king, because the Highlands were so bad reachable it was forbidden to produce whiskey in the Highlands, strictly forbidden. And all whiskey manufacturers were located in the lowlands, Glasgow to Edinburgh and down to the border. And they produced cheap and awful stuff. So they had a closed market, there was no competition from outside, and the distilleries grew huge, and the whiskey was really bad. Nobody looked about the center cut, and everything was blend, and only little malt in it, if at all. The column stills were invented already, and Aeneas Coffee increased the quality and the capacity of those column stills in 1750, 60, yeah, around that date. And the Highlands was forbidden because you do not have the chance to tax the whiskey there in the Highlands. There were thousands and thousands of distilleries, small distilleries up there, and there were, well, raids going after them, and Robert Burns, the famous bard of Scotland, he was a tax officer part of his life. And then it was King Edward, second, third, fourth, no idea. So there was a king, and his preferable whiskey came from the Highlands. And therefore, he seized the ban on Highland whiskey and allowed whiskey production in the Highlands. And I think it was in the early 1820s. And so most of the distilleries in the Speyside show an establishment date of 1823 to 1824. So they applied for a license and started production then, and before there had been a farm with an illegal distillery on site. So some of the distilleries are able to show older establishment dates. And then in the 1860s, around the 1860s, the railways were built in Scotland, and there had been the Great North of Scotland Railway. And it started in Dufftown. Dufftown was built on Rome was built on 7 hills. Dufftown was built on 7 stills. Then Craiglachie, we know that. Aberlour, as I show the bottle here. Then Darlane Distillery with an own part of the railway. Then goes to Knockandoo, to Ballinderloch, which is Craigenmore, I think, or it's Ballinderloch Glenfarclas, somewhere there. And then down to Grantown-on-Spey. So this is the Great North of Scotland Railway, and it was closed in 1966. Well, the streets were good then, and the lorries were able to transport, and the railway was far too expensive, so they stopped it. It started in 1863 until 1966, and so all the distilleries are very close to this railway. And there's the Strathspey Railway, which is still preserved and used as an ancient railway, and this goes from Grantown-on-Spey on the west to Aviemore. Yeah. And very important is the Morayshire Railway, which was built in 1862, and it goes from Lossiemouth in the north of the normal highlands, not in the northern highlands, but in the highlands on the north coast, down to Elgin, Glenmoray, and then down to Longbourn, Colburn, Rothes, down to Craiglachie, where it meets the other railway. So you see, all the main centers of the Speyside region were reached by railway, and there was another one going at the coast around Forres, where the Ben Romach distillery is located. Yeah, so there was a net of railways, and the distilleries were built close to these railways because of the delivery of their goods. And the ones residing closer to the railway had an advantage. They do not have had to ship their casks by horse carriage to the next station. This was expensive, this was tedious work. So from all those thousands smaller illegal distilleries, only the ones close to the railway survived. That's the reason why all these distilleries are there. And the Northern Highlands are, well, there had been a railway, or has still, not sure, which goes up and passes Dalmore and reaches, or goes really through Glenmorangie, passes Balblair. So yeah, it's the railway. That's all. Next questions. What are the oldest distilleries in Scotland still in production? Well, there are 5 of them. The oldest is Glenturret, 1775. And this one, I think, was close enough to the lowlands to be regulated as a lowland distillery and wasn't forbidden to produce this whiskey. Then Glenturret is the main producer for the famous grouse, and famous grouse was popular for hundreds of years. So there was always demand for the whiskey, so Glenturret did not have to stop production. Yeah, but I think it was closed sometime during the war, probably. Then Bowmore on the Isle of Islay, and the Isle of Islay does not belong to Great Britain. Nope. It belongs to the United Kingdom. So there was a different legislation there. The Lord of the Isles were the chiefs of the islands, and well, I think they were taken over by sword. And 1779, and therefore I have this bottle of Bowmore here on my cask. Then Strathyla, 1786. And this one is the distillery with the unstopped production over all those years. Continuous operation. Reason for that is the very famous Chivers Regal whiskey, where Strathyla calls itself the home of the Chivers. Yeah. Then there is Balblair, 1790, and they possess an archive of old documents of the whiskey industry, and there they found this old date which proves their existence in 1790. If you enter the offices, you see really old bottles, and they're like empty, sorry. Wonderful old place. And then Oban at the west coast, 1794. And I have a remembrance. I think Glengarry, written Glengarioch, is also from the 19th century. 95? I know about the old 5 really, and the 6th one, half a dozen. Half a dozen is better. Yeah. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, and if you like to have questions answered, please do so in our forum on Whisky.com. I'm looking through that quite regularly. I try to answer immediately and take out some of these questions for a more detailed review here at my whiskey cask at Whisky.com. Thank you very much.